Can you hear me? Oh, there we go. Linda, could you please give the invocation?
This prayer is adopted from Pastor Anthony Turner, who is president of Destiny Ministries International. So let's bow our heads. Dear Heavenly Father, who is righteous, just, truthful, and full of mercy, we come before you tonight during a time of unrest in our nation, which affects our city. Lord, none of what is happening in this city right now caught you by surprise. You knew that this day would come. You have seen the pain and injustice. You have seen this coming for hundreds of years. You saw it coming when you watched the greatest injustice happen to your own son, who knew no sin but became sin, so that we would be the righteousness of God. So, Father, we stand in a city that's been full of hurt, pain, trauma, and rage. There are so many people that don't know what to do or where to go. There are so many things causing people to be divided. Even in the midst of that, we stand up today as part of the church. We come to the bow of the boat, as Jesus did, and we say, "Peace, be still." We come to the bow of this city, and we see the storms raging. They seem so unsurmountable to us that they cause us to say, as the disciples did, "Do you care that we perish?" We know, Father, that you do. So from a place of peace, we speak to the storms of anger, violence, rage, and dismation. We speak to the storms of injustice. We speak to the storms of fear. We speak to the storms and release the sound of shalom, or peace, and we say, "Peace, be still." We say to the hearts that are hurting and hearts that are confused, we release the peace of God, the peace of Jesus into your lives and into these situations across this city. We release a great calm over this city and over the neighborhoods. We ask you, Lord, for an invasion of your holy fire, just like you invaded that upper room on the day of Pentecost. The 120 that were waiting for you came differently than they went in. In the midst of all that is going on, we speak a word of peace, and we say that we want to come out of it this differently than we went in. We speak to this city that is in so much pain right now. We release your love, your healing balm. We ask you to bring us together now to be solutions to these problems that our city is facing. We pray for a broken-hearted city to receive your love. We pray for those who don't know where to turn to you, Jesus. We turn to you. We pray for pastors and leaders, moms and dads and children who are confused and scared. We say, Lord, in the midst of this, what the enemy has meant for evil, we decree that you are going to turn it for our good. We are going to see this city that has been divided find a way to look past all of the hurt and anger and rage and fear. We are going to see this city come together. You said your son would be Wonderful Counselor, the Prince of Peace, and the government would be on his shoulders. So we take the government of this city and we rest it on the shoulders of Jesus. We take our city's pain, our anger, our hurt, and we exchange it at the cross for your love and peace. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you, Linda. So now we will officially call this special meeting to order. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Present in person, Mayor Miller.
Here.
Alderpersons McClanathan.
Here.
Ross.
Here.
Parker is absent. Busker.
Here.
And Mysick.
Here.
And Barbary.
Here.
Present via teleconference, Borneman.
Present.
Alderperson Brashaw.
Here.
Staff present in person, Manager Bucas.
Present.
Director Richter. Chief Summers. Present. Chief Liggett. Present. Director Sutman. Present. Clerk Anderson is present. Attorney Zito. Present. Department heads attending electronically. Kopansky.
Present.
Huffines.
Present.
Hines.
Present.
And Jansen will be marked absent. Thank you, Mayor.
And if you could please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance led by Alderman Brashaw.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
Okay, the first item is the approval of the agenda. Is there such a motion?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Misick. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll on the approval of the agenda?
Brashaw,
Aye.
Misick,
Aye.
Berbere,
Aye.
Borneman,
Aye.
McClanathan,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
and Busker.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Item number 2 is approval from the minutes for the special meeting for May 15th and the regular meeting for May 18th, and the Cdbg public hearing for May 18th. Is there a motion for approval of those minutes?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Misick, seconded by Alderman Busker. Madam Clerk, could you please take the, was it Busker? Yeah. Okay. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Brashaw,
Aye.
Misick,
Aye.
Berbere,
Aye.
Borneman,
Aye.
McClanathan,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
and Busker.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, next is public comments. We have 3 that are signed in and a few that were electronically. So we will start with Jamie Spellman, if you could.
Good evening. My name's Jamie Spellman. I'm the general manager at the Lindo Theater. I've been with Classic Cinemas for 19 years, 17 as the general manager. I might be a little biased when I say this, but I think that the theater is a very important business within our community. We do create jobs, sometimes the very important first job for our local teenagers. We generate tax revenue, and we provide an escape to our vacation for people to get out of their homes and out of their heads, and I think right now that's what people need. We have been dark since March 16th. If we're able to move into phase 4 on June 26th, we will have been closed for 96 days. 96 days. We have tried opening for curbside business in order to bring in some revenue, but unfortunately that can't sustain us for long. We need to open our doors to the public to start playing movies again. We were able to open our theater in Beloit, Wisconsin on May 25th. Wisconsin's been kind of a little bit loose with the guidelines from the CDC, but Rock County's been a little more strict. They went over our protocols and approved them, and each of you have been given a copy of those with the movie theater opening guidelines. A lot of it you'll see in other businesses that are opening up, making sure that employees' temperatures are checked when they report to work, wearing face coverings when they show up for work. What I want to focus on is a change to Pritzker's guidelines. He put that he would like 50 or less. I think it's per auditorium. We think as an industry, a percentage of our total capacity would be a more accurate count. Currently, Beloit is at 25%, and for phase 4, we'd like to see it go up to 50%. We would also change our seating patterns while they're in the auditorium so that if they are in the recliner seating, they would be able to sit in each row but keep 2 seats in between them and the next party. For the stadium seating, it would be every other row with 3 seats in between. I have had initial conversation with Craig at the Stevenson County Health Department, and I would meet with him again just to make sure that we can address any concerns that each of us has and that we would be able to open safely within guidelines. I also want you to know that Classic Cinemas has not been idle during this time. We have been doing our best to prepare for reopening, having a good solid plan in place. We've been working with our staff and making sure that we have training. This week we did a food sanitation course with an emphasis on what we're going to need to take place in the time of COVID. And we've been doing a lot of cleaning. But we want to be the best example within our industry so that we can open safely within guidelines so that our community will be confident coming out in public and being around people again. The first major release right now is planned for July 17th. That will be Tenet with Mulan to follow. So the 3 weeks leading up to that, from the end of June until the middle of July, are critical for us in order to build confidence within the community so that people are coming out, so that we can show the film companies that we will be able to have attendance for these major releases. So,
Jamie, I'm sorry, your 3 minutes exceeded. The council members do have a copy of that very well-written plan, so I appreciate that. So if there's something further, you can always reach back out to finish that, but just to stay within the guidelines.
Okay.
Thank you.
thank you very much.
Next, we have Holly Elber.
Good evening. I'm Holly Elber and my sister Shelly Edler. We own Grand River Hall. Our main source of income for the last 3 years has been bringing large groups of people together for celebrations. 2020 was supposed to be a big year for us. We had over 30 weddings booked with goals of improving our space, and for the first time in 3 years of business, we were looking at coming out in the black. We were so excited to make even more improvements to the Raleigh complex. Pritzker's phase plan gives businesses like ours no hope. We cannot financially wait out any longer. We've been fortunate enough that our bank has agreed to let us pay interest only on our loan through June. Even with the small EIDL grant we received, our funds are depleting quickly and bankruptcy is on the horizon within the year. I can stand here all night and give you a sob story to pull on heartstrings, but let's be practical and talk numbers. It costs roughly $3,600 a month to keep our doors open. That doesn't include any labor or taxes. That is just everyday bills. We have lost an estimated $15,000 from events that have canceled or rescheduled. The city is losing money not only from the beverage tax that we pay in, but also pull a large amount of people from outside the city limits, so there's loss of revenue in hotels, restaurants, etc., and catering businesses have seen a huge loss. This is money that will never come back to the area, as weddings that have moved to 2021 have taken the opportunity from other brides and grooms to book with us. Operating at 50% capacity would allow us weddings of 150 guests or less, which is 75% of our weddings left in 2020. We still have brides contacting us every day and they still want to get married. We still have people that want to come together and celebrate. With all the hate going on right now, wouldn't it be great to come together to celebrate love? We even have employees that want to come back to work and don't have the option for unemployment. The option to choose has been taken away from our community and it is beginning to struggle because of it. Please let the people decide what is best for them. We are not incompetent and know what sanitary measures we need to take to keep everyone safe. Please approve Freeport's own plan to operate at least 50% capacity for entertainment venues. You will save more businesses than just Grand River Hall. Thank you.
Thank you. And Stacy Whitfield.
Hello, I'm Stacy Whitfield, and I really didn't have anything planned to say especially, but I was born and raised here in Freeport, and this last weekend went really great with the protest. Unfortunately, it should have been taken care of before that. I've approached individuals and let me just go back to basically when I was raised, when I was growing up here in Freeport, how the black community felt they were more protected. Mayor McElroy, he was in the neighborhood. He was patronizing black businesses. Today, do I see any alderman or mayor in the community trying to get to know that side of town, trying to help the citizens? And we gotta stop and think everybody's not from the same, lifestyle. So you may be comfortable with your lifestyle and other people adjust to what they have. So just basically, as the leaders of this city, we need to get out. You need to get out more. See what that community wants. And not just the third ward alderman. That is a big part of his responsibility, but it's everybody's responsibility here. If you want this city to be a great city for everybody, you would get more involved over there in the Third Ward area. The streets are horrible. There are some things going on in certain places, but they are so left out. And to start a committee meeting with a prayer, that's not saying a whole lot, really. Faith without works is dead. What is the works over there in the Third Ward coming? When? That's all. I just really want you guys to sit back to say, how much do you really care about Freeport? If you care enough about Freeport, you care about the Third Ward community, because that's a part of Freeport as well. So I'm just asking and encouraging you all to do something more than whatever you've been doing to try and bring this down and make people feel like they are a citizen of Freeport and you guys really do care. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have one on the line?
Mr. Rudd? Are you still there? Okay. Kurt, where's the microphone on this? Mr. Rudd, go ahead. Just a second. Just a second. I need to get you on the microphone. Well, I would have to know how to do that. Okay, can you just give me a test, like count to 10?
8, 9, 10.
There you go.
Okay, Mr. Rudd, go ahead.
Mayor Miller, I would like permission to play a 4.5-minute audio clip to take up both of my available 6-minute, or my total 6 minutes available tonight for one 4.5-minute clip.
I'm sorry, you don't have 6 minutes. Our city ordinance says 3, and unfortunately, I had to stop a previous person in the middle of their talk, so we can give you 3.
Can I? I'm sorry, I can't hear anybody on the other end.
Mr. Utt, can you hear me okay?
Yes. Yes, I can hear you.
She replied that the public comment section is only 3 minutes, and we have had to cut one previous speaker off so that you can play 3 of the recorded message if you'd like.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Hello all, I'm Patrick Sellers. You know, as an elected official, I found the atrocity of Mr. George Floyd as reprehensible and disgusting. As a black man in America, I found that same atrocity as callous, malicious, cowardice, and inexcusable. Now questions are being raised. How do we move past this as a society? How do we heal? I can assure you that it's going to take a whole lot more than just flowery discussions on social justice or the lack thereof. It's going to take more than false committees, task forces, and feel-good meetings. It's going to take more than campaign promises for justice and equality. It's going to take a whole lot more than just slaps on the wrist for the perpetrators of this and other heinous acts of racism that's plagued our country for years. You see, the time has come for us to take a serious, long, hard, and unbiased look at our justice system with the sole purpose of reforming
Mr. Ott, can you hear me?
Self-evident that is equal. Losers is value when not all men are used with equity.
I'm sorry, Mr. Ott, we're going to have to cut it there.
That in 2020, the contents of a man's character are still ignored due solely to the color.
And then the clerk has a few letters that were submitted.
One is regarding Resolution 2020-30 from Attorney Frank Cook. The City Council is soon to vote on Resolution 2020-30, which purports to provide guidelines for local businesses who choose to disregard COVID-19 directives issued by Governor Pritzker. The resolution is premised on a number of whereas clauses that are obviously intended to suggest that there is a widespread and well-founded belief that the actions of Governor Pritzker are invalid. In fact, the whereas recitals suggest that those who think the governor has exceeded his authority are clearly a minority of elected officials in a minority of the counties in the state. Only one state circuit court judge in the southern part of the state has ruled that Governor Pritzker has exceeded his authority. That decision was only binding on the governor with respect to the state representative who filed the suit, and the decision is still under review. To the extent that there is any court with controlling authority over the city of Freeport who has weighed in on Pritzker's actions, it is the Federal District Court of the Northern District of Illinois who ruled against the beloved Church of Lena in their effort to challenge Pritzker's restrictions on church services. That decision was affirmed by the Seventh Circuit Court of Appeals and effectively affirmed by the Supreme Court in a case challenging similar restrictions brought against Governor Newsom in California. The guiding legal rule in this country has always been that laws passed by legislatures and orders issued by duly is in large part premised on that presumption. Although arguments can always be made that the actions of government are invalid, they don't provide a good reason to disregard the requirements imposed by the government action until those arguments are accepted by a court. The point can be illustrated by examining the legalities of the emergency declaration issued by Mayor Miller on Thursday, June 4. In that declaration, Mayor Miller stated that on the basis of a suggestion from the police, an emergency would exist in Freeport from June 5th through June 7th, and that a curfew running from 8 p.m. until 4 a.m. would be in effect and strictly enforced during the state emergency. Obviously, this curfew was every bit as disruptive to businesses that would otherwise be open after 8 p.m. as anything Governor Pritzker did. Indeed, the argument could be made that it is more disruptive because it impacts on businesses like Walmart and grocery stores who dodge some of the impact of the governor's orders. A curfew also impinges on everyone's right to freely move around within their community, not to mention their First Amendment right peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. It could also be argued that a mayor can't base an emergency declaration on the mere possibility that something might happen in the future. I don't believe the prospect of trouble to which the mayor apparently reacted was as certain to occur as would be the landfall of a hurricane being tracked by the National Weather Service, or as was the violence to be expected from the advance of General Sherman's march to the sea. From her declaration, the most that we can infer is that the police had some reason to believe that unspecified problems from unidentified, presumably outside agitators could happen. Emergencies are most commonly understood to be the result of something that has actually happened as opposed to something that might happen, even if the anticipated event is the repeat of something that happened days earlier. That said, the mayor's declaration was entitled to a presumption of validity despite the arguments that could be mounted against its validity. So too are the orders of the governor. The city can't have it both ways. Frank Cook, attorney at law. The remainder of the emails address the Social Justice Committee. The first one is from Colton Havens. First, I'd like to thank you for the swift actions in forming the Social Justice Committee. As a longtime resident, activist, and mentor/tutor for underserved youths in Freeport, I have seen the social injustices in all of the governmental institutions' policies for too long. Please reconsider the city budget and reinvest in social programs for mental health, AA, community policing, neighborhood initiatives in each ward, outreach to the Boys and Girls Club, and Freeport School District 145, invest in civic internships for high school and college students, invest in a city neighborhood beautification project, etc. Those were just a few ideas to bounce off of. I encourage you guys to please review public policy in a town hall/roundtable setting. Invite youth, members from the neighborhoods, members from the faith community, nonprofit sector, Board of Education, Housing Authority, and other governing bodies. Have mindful, collaborative discussions on advancing racial equality through public policy. No matter your political affiliation, we have a job to do, and that is to improve the quality of life in Freeport for everyone. Don't you want a strong, unified community for your kids, grandkids to grow up in? Thank you for your time, Colton Havens. The next email is from Kelvin McElwain. People are in pain from the killing of People are in pain from the killing of unarmed black people by the police and vigilantes. Business owners who have had their stores destroyed are in pain. Good police officers are in pain. We need more listening, understanding, and doing better. Law enforcement in the city of Freeport is at a crucial crossroads. You can either take this opportunity to listen to the Freeport community you are serving and protecting, educate the community about the practices and policies of the Freeport Police Department, or you continue doing what you are doing. This is a chance to improve the perception of the police department by many in our community. Doing the work and taking advantage of this opportunity will create a better environment for our police officers to do their job. The choice is yours. I am willing to take part in any efforts to bridge this gap. Feel free to contact me, Kelvin McElwain, and he gives his contact information. Carl Braun also sent an email. Good evening, my name is Carl Braun. I live in Freeport. Not that it should matter, but I am white. Over this last weekend, I personally observed the coming together in unity, a diverse and passionate cross-section of the community. This unity was on display in response to police brutality as the result of racism and longstanding inequitable treatment of citizens of color in this community and many other places in the country. I'm sure all of you agree that evidence of racism, inequitable policing activity based on skin color is unacceptable. Many of us who have enjoyed privilege in our lives have much to learn about what racism is and how racism in law enforcement appears in the lives of the POC in our community. I am studying hard right now to learn about the roots of racism and policing history, and I like to think in these times and circumstances, our city leaders would be trying to learn as well. I submit that all those responsible for public safety operations, the city manager, mayor, alderpersons, chief of police, all the way through the ranks, need to study and genuinely understand the issue of racism and inequitable treatment in policing. In tonight's meeting, the City Council is going to approve the formation of a social justice committee. It is my sincere hope that those forming this committee will request names of black nominees for the committee from the black community. In its final form, this committee should reflect significant representation from black residents and/or community leaders. If the black community is ignored, overlooked, or not consulted in the establishment of this committee, the outcome for our city will be worse than never having authorized such a committee. If the committee does not genuinely begin to address and solve social justice issues in the community, it will be another promise broken. As you decide on membership in the Social Justice Committee, I hope you will consider my words. Thank you, Carl. The last one is from Casey Anthony. My name is Casey Jacobs Anthony, resident of Freeport. I would like to comment on the proposed formation of a social justice committee. Freeport has tried many things throughout the years and put together lots of different committees and subcommittees to address the issues facing our area. One of the barriers that exist is that the same group of people are always on these committees. There is not much action that comes out of these committees that creates sustainable change. Freeport is full of passionate people who want to improve this area. Freeport is full of passionate people who want to improve this area, but they aren't ever invited to the table. I urge you to think outside of the box, outside of the normal group of people that you think of when putting together committees. I urge you to step out of your comfort zone. Change doesn't happen when we are comfortable. Thank you.
And then I think we just had one that didn't get signed up in time, but Ms. Pearson, if you'd like to have 3 minutes, you're welcome to.
My name is Wendy Pearson. I reside at 1254 South Carroll Avenue in Freeport, Illinois. And I don't think that there are too many people in this town that doesn't know my name if they don't know my face. But this isn't about me. For the past 20 years, I've been fighting for justice in this town. I've practically stood in front of the city council and begged for it. I've begged for this town to unite and stand up and tell the truth. I beg for the city council to acknowledge that our people have been treated wrong. I've asked people to speak and speak truth to light. I told my mother after, after Wednesday's drive and after Saturday's protest, that I've been coming to this town since I was 4 years old. And Saturday was the proudest day of my life to consider myself a resident of Freeport. Saturday was the proudest day of all of our lives. To have a white woman on the other side of town, on Stevenson, to stop me and say, I came outside of my house so that I can meet you. And I haven't stopped crying yet. I just had to see your face. There's only one other person in this town that has come to me and apologized for how bad I've been treated. And that was a cop. A cop that told me that the Freeport police could do whatever they wanted to do to a little 14-year-old black kid after a Freeport police officer had taken her handcuffs off to try to put them around his throat to strangle him. I never thought a day in my life that a racist police would come to me and tell me he was sorry. I never thought that a man could change his stripes. But I praise Otto for that. Because I know that what happened with Otto changed after his son was killed in Iraq. But I want the town to know something, and I want you to know this. Sunday was not a protest, and I want you to stop saying that. I don't want to hear that come out of one more mouth in this town, because it was not a protest. It was a combination of this community coming together to buffer whatever was going to happen based around a threat. It was us coming to try to ease the tensions before the tensions started. It was two people that don't look like me that came here, one of who lives here and one who doesn't, who stood in our faces and told us she came here looking for a protest. And she was older. She had to be in my age group, and I'm 60. And the other one was heavy set, dark clothing, and bleach blonde hair, and I think everybody that saw the videos know who I'm talking about. And our kids followed up behind your kids. And this woman brought her 14-year-old child out there to keep this mess going on. I have one more thing to say, and I know I'm past my 3 minutes, and I appreciate you allowing me to speak. I have two things to say. Relinquish the reins. Relinquish the reins. Because every last one of you that are sitting in that seat are not going to be sitting there. Our kids are going to be sitting there. Your kids are going to be sitting there. And you're going to have to look in their faces, and they're going to make decisions for you in this town, and you better treat them nicely. Because they're out there, and they're sitting in here, and they told you they would be. And they only need one representative to take it back to the 4 groups that planned, organized, are respectful, educated, and came back home. They came back home, and our kids don't come back home. The other thing I have to say, and it's the last thing I have to say, you guys talking about a committee. Why did we find out about it in the newspaper or from the radio, the news station? Because I found out about it from Set on One that lasted all of one meeting to Rock Island, and that was lies, and they've been lies, and that's all we've had was lies. I'm 60 years old, and I've been listening to 56 years of lies from this town. So I'm going to tell you this. I don't know who's sitting on this committee, but the nepotism in this town needs to stop. The individuals that you continuously put on committees, that you continuously hire, based around a name, based around who they hang with, based around who their family members are, has to stop.
Thank you, Wendy, for your
Thank you.
passion. 3 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. I am Lucinda Lenora. I'm your customer service rep for the Water and Sewer Department for 19 and a half years. And I just want to quickly and sincerely thank everyone. First of all, I want to thank the EMTs and the chief and whoever came to my aid as I collapsed Saturday. But it happens, just overheated. And I also want to thank everyone who showed up in attendance to support the two young ladies, which one is my daughter and the other is like a daughter, and the young man. I am the mother of Tamaya Burrow, and Philanice Brooks is like a daughter to me. I've been in her life since she was born. And I also just want to say that Saturday shined the light on Freeport. It's shown that we can all come together, not as just individual, but as a community as a whole, and to recognize that there is issues in this town, not only in policing, but there's all levels of racism or whatever you want to call it in this town that needs to be addressed. I want to also thank everyone that was in attendance from all races and from many places. So again, I say thank you, and I also want to acknowledge all of the city officials that was in attendance. I won't call names. I know Sam was there, and I don't want to miss anybody. So again, I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you for all of your support. Thank you.
Thank you, Lucinda. Okay, that concludes public comments. We will move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda is considered to be routine in nature unless there's a particular subject that the council would like to remove for further discussion. Seeing none, the consent agenda consists of approving and placing on file the Liquor Commission minutes from March 12th, the Fire Department report from April 2020, the Executive Director Mark Williams report from the Greater Freeport Partnership dated May 28th, building permit reports for May 2020, offer letters for Michelle Richter for the Director of Finance and Ex Officio Treasurer, Kirsten Hines for the Director of Community and Economic Development, and Rob Boyer for the Director of Public Works. It also consists of approving the finance bills totaling $1,043,676.45 and the payroll for pay period ending May 23rd in the total of $464,213.81. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. We have a motion made by Alderman Misick, seconded by Alderman Berberet. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll?
Brescia,
Aye.
Misick,
Aye.
Berberet,
Aye.
Borneman,
Aye.
McClanathan,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
and Busker.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. Item number 5, we have a presentation of a donation for Operation Helping Heroes to our police and fire departments. Country Financial.
Well, first of all, thank you all for allowing us a few minutes tonight on obviously what is a very important meeting you're having here. I'm Tom Edler. My office partner here, Jeff Cutler, and our office partner, Melissa Wolf, who could not attend tonight, have come together with Country Financial through a program called Operation Helping Heroes. And this is the second year we have been able to donate to first responders. We are donating a total of $1,500, $750 to the police department, $750 to the fire department. And we just wanted to mention too, this year they gave us, or worked with us on a few extra funds. We were able to serve meals to first responders early in the year. And we also offered up a free lunch for people who had been affected by COVID-19 and had been laid off of work or lost hours there. So we are just happy to donate back to the people that help our community so much. So again, on behalf of Melissa Wolf, Jeff Cutler, and myself, Tom Edler, we would like to present this. Thank you.
Chiefs, can either one of you speak to what that money will go towards?
Ours is already spent.
Okay, what you spent it on?
We're going to utilize the second half of it to get some more equipment for the police department to help out on the street. We're going to put that in with another grant that we received to outfit some of our guys with some extra tools on their belt to help deal with things on the street.
The fire department is going to use the funds for the purchase of our third Lucas device. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Tom and Jeff. We really appreciate that. I'm going to guess Richie's not here. I should say Richard. Sorry. Is he here?
Tonight we're recognizing Richard McAmeal. He's been with the police department for 5 years. Mr. McAmeal is a member. He's been assigned to the patrol division for those 5 years. He is currently, for the last 3 years, he served as a gang unit officer. He's also an FTO and an ERT member. The most important thing about Officer McAmeal is if we ever need anything, he always steps up and comes through, and he's a very valuable part of our police department. Unfortunately, with everything that's going on, he wasn't going to come tonight, but I will make sure that he knows that we all appreciate everything that he does for the city.
Thank you. Next, we'll have a couple of swearing-ins. I imagine we can just be heard from the speaker right there. You stand on that. Stand on this. One at a time. Unless you want to join and will it make you feel better? Okay. So can everybody hear okay? Okay. So we have our swearing in this evening. So Randy, if you could raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Randy J. Bucas,
I, Randy J. Bucas,
having been appointed as city manager to the city of Freeport in the county of Stevenson, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the state of Illinois, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of my appointment according to the best of my ability. Thank you, Randy. We're happy to have you.
Thank you, Mayor.
There you go. All right. And I think we need to have a photo op. Okay. Okay. Michelle, if you could raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Michelle R. Richter,
I, Michelle R. Richter,
having been appointed as the finance director and ex officio treasurer
having been appointed finance director and ex officio treasurer
in the city of Freeport
in the city of Freeport
in the county of Stevenson,
in the county of Stevenson,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and the Constitution of the State of Illinois,
and I will faithfully discharge the duties of my appointment
and I will faithfully discharge the duties of my office
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Congratulations, Ms. L. We're happy to have you. Okay, moving on to item number 8, we have a presentation for the audit for the year 2019B.
Good evening. Andy Mace with Whitley, partner on the city's audit. So we sent out electronic versions. You got the electronic versions, I believe? Okay. Our office, we're at a skeleton crew right now. We are putting together the paper copies, and we'll get those out to you shortly. As usual, I'll just go over at a higher level some things of note in the audit report. I'll refer to page numbers if you want to thumb along. I don't know if you have it on there or not, but on page 1 is our independent auditors report, and here we state that we conducted our audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards, and that it is our opinion that these financial statements present fairly the financial position of the city in conformity with generally accepted accounting principles. So that means you have a clean audit opinion. So that's real good, no qualifications there. Pages 3 to 13 are the management's discussion and analysis section, and as the name implies, the administration, the management prepares this document. And if you didn't read any further of the 179-page report, read the MD&A, and that'll give you good information as to what occurred financially during the 8-month period. I guess I should stress that this was for the short year. It's just the 8-month period as we switch fiscal year ends here. Pages 14 and 15 then is the statement of net position, and this is at the full accrual accounting basis, so it includes all the long-term assets and long-term liabilities, unlike in the fund statements that have a short-term measurement focus. So I don't like to spend too much time here, but you can see all the non-current assets and liabilities that are included there. 16 and 17 then is the operating statement, again on the full accrual basis of accounting. So this includes things like depreciation that you normally don't see in the funds, and excludes things like principal paid on long-term debt. Page 18 then is the balance sheet of the governmental funds. This is that modified accrual, short-term measurement focus, excludes the long-term assets and liabilities. 19 is a reconciliation between modified accrual fund balances and full accrual net position. Then really, beginning on page 20 is where you live. That's the fund financial statements. This shows the operating statement for the 8-month period. And we see that the general fund had an operating surplus of about $1 million for the year. And I'll show you more detail on that in a bit. Pages 22 and 23 is the net position of all of your proprietary funds. And one thing to note here, roughly right smack dab in the middle of the page, sewer department, 60% down the page due to other funds. So the sewer department has been running, has been a cash deficit situation for the last number of years, and that's where that liability shows. That money is essentially owed to the sewer fund. And I know that's been a management letter comment from us over the last couple of years, and I know that the city is addressing that with their plans to consolidate those funds when the new accounting system is implemented. So we expect that to go away. After that then is the operating statement of those proprietary funds. One thing to note there is that the landfill closure fund had negative expenses for the year, and that's the result of a decrease in the estimated closure costs for the landfill. There's an estimate made every year, and it goes up and down. This year it went down, so that reduced the liability, therefore reduced the expense essentially. After that, then, are statements of cash flows. There's pension fund detail. And then beginning on page 29 are the notes to the financial statements. And here there's all kinds of information. A couple of points I like to highlight is on page 37, all of the city's deposits with financial institutions have been fully insured either through Fdic coverage or collateralized with securities held by a third party. So you're in the safest position there. There's other detailed information on the investment holdings, both by the city itself and its pension funds as well in that footnote. Pages 46 and 47 show the capital activity for the year. And then beginning on page 48 is a summary of the changes in long-term debt. Couple of things to note here. You see the IMRF ending balance, roughly at the top of that chart, is a negative $606,000. So that's a net pension asset. So as of the actuarial date for this report, you actually had an asset. You don't have a net pension liability for IMRF. And that was really a function of, I don't know if you remember, at 12/31/18, there was a market drop. So the value of the investments in IMRF fell, and it really put you towards the other end. Well, that reversed, obviously, this year, and you're in much better position in IMRF. Now, the other two things to note there on the police and fire pensions are the increases of $10 million roughly for each of those pension plans. And that is, what was driving that was change in actuarial assumptions. And we can see there's some historical information I can point you to in the required supplementary information here, is that the actuaries look at different information, they look at different trends, they look at all kinds of different information, and in conjunction with the city, they change their assumptions. And that's what drove the increase in the liabilities there. Pages 49 to 59 show a lot of the detail related to the city's long-term debt. We see for each debt instrument what was issued, what was retired, and what those ending balances were. Pages 61 to 67 are rather lengthy footnotes on each of the city's retirement plans, IMRF, police pension, and fire pension. And, well, I'll show you more relevant information in the notes to required supplementary information there. Pages 77 to 80 is a similar footnote for the city's other post-employment benefits plan. And you can see that liability went up a little bit, again, mostly driven by changes in assumptions. And I believe the actuaries are using basically the same assumptions for the pensions as they are for OPEB. Then on pages 80, 82 and 83, this is some historical information related to the IMRF pension fund. And if you look right in the middle of the page, you can see that for 19, we had $6 million of net investment income, but for 18, we had almost negative $2 million. So that's that big shift I referred to. At the end of 18, we had that market drop. And then for the police pension fund on page 84, you look at the about fifth line down from the top of the page, increase in liability of about $9.5 million related to changes in assumptions. And if you look at 2 years ago then, 4/30/18, a year and a half ago, there was a almost $13 million change in assumptions. So you can see how those assumptions have a significant effect on what your liabilities look like. Page 95 is a summary statement of the city's general fund actual results compared to budget. And a couple of things to note here is that your expenditures were right at budget. So that tells me that you lay out a financial plan and you stick to it. Most of your variances here came on the revenue side. You ended up receiving more money than you had anticipated, but you didn't spend more than you had anticipated. So that's what drove the increase in fund balance there. Then there's more detail on pages 97 to 103, line by line detail on the city's general fund budget compared to actual. Then from 105 to 138 is the city's combining and individual fund financial statements. So at the front of these reports, we group everything together into non-major funds if they don't meet certain financial thresholds, and then we show the detail of all those in the back. So all of your special revenue funds and capital projects funds and debt service funds, et cetera, as you can see the detail there with both budget and actual comparisons. Then pages 139 to 179 show the detail of the debt service schedules for each of the city's debt instruments. So there's a lot of detail in this report. I think, though, what I take away from this is good financial planning. You stick to your budget, and you're in good shape. And then operationally, we issue our required communication letter. There we talk about any problems encountered during the audit or any disagreements with management or anything like that. Of course, there were none. And then the only recommendation we had was related to the negative cash position in the sewer fund. So Michelle and Randy in their offices, they're really doing a good job with your financial accounting. And it's a pleasure to work with them, actually, because they do such a good job. So that's my report. Any questions for me? I know that's a lot of information real fast, but be happy to take any questions.
Well, we appreciate that. That's some good words. We appreciate all that you said there. So, Council, is there questions concerning
Mayor?
Alderman McClanathan?
Thank you. So the primary thing that stood out to you outside of the good finances and keeping right in line with expenditures, which I appreciate with the departments in regards to that. But the big thing looking forward here, the whole for us is the change in assumptions with the pensions and what that looks like going forward and how are we going to address that? Other than that, did anything else really stick out to you?
No.
Okay.
Did not.
Anything else, Council? Well, thank you very much for your presentation.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks, Randy.
Item number 9 is the first reading of ordinance 2020-30. Madam Clerk, could you please read this?
Ordinance authorizing use of certain emergency powers in response to the COVID-19 pandemic.
Manager Bucus.
Thank you, Your Honor. What we're doing is we're asking for a continuation of the emergency powers, which we started back in March. The reason we're asking for this is there's a possibility that there may be funds available from the federal government to recoup some of our costs that are involved with the COVID-19 pandemic. There's been quite a few bills and a lot of discussion in Washington about making funds available to local governments. A couple have passed, either one house or the other, but nothing's been passed by both or signed by the governor, or excuse me, by the president. So we're asking for a continuation of this emergency powers for the pandemic, just be on the safe side in case something does come available.
And it does not reflect that our numbers are worse. In fact, actually, our numbers are better. It just keeps that avenue open for federal monies. And I believe last week, or maybe the week before, the county did the same thing. So it's not something alarming. It just keeps us in line for federal monies, should they come available. Questions, Council?
Mayor?
Alderman Burberry?
Thank you, Mayor. What would the funds available potentially be used for? Do we know?
Reimbursing our costs for cleaning and overtime. There's been other costs as far as equipment and that as well.
So it strictly deals with operations of the
Right.
city and the staff?
Yes.
Police and fire involved in that too?
Yes, that's all the city
All city.
services, especially on the fire side, because with the ambulance, they're taking extra steps now. They got, the masks, the gloves, the gowns. I mean, just a lot of additional costs that we didn't have before.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman McClanathan?
Thank you. I see this continuation puts it about another month out through July 6th. I assume that's our first meeting in July. How long did the county go in regards to their declaration? Was it another 30-day declaration, or?
I believe it was, yes.
Follow-up, Mayor?
Sure.
Practically speaking, outside of the eligibility for reimbursements, what other practical effect does this have in regards to our operations?
I'm sorry, can you clarify your question, please?
You said the main purpose of this was for eligibility for reimbursement of funding potentially down the road. By having this declared, outside of that, what are the practical purposes of this? What are the powers that are authorized under this and things of that nature?
I guess the actual powers we have to refer to our attorney.
I know we referenced some of the ordinances, I think, in the language, but.
Sorry. And hello? There we go. So this also allows, to the extent it's needed, for emergency powers, to address situations where if there needed to be closures or anything like that, that the mayor could exercise those sorts of emergency powers, or the council could, to the extent necessary, to address COVID situations. So, for example, the closure of City Hall, to prevent the spread of the virus there. So along those lines, it gives those emergency powers if needed.
Additional follow-up. Are those emergency powers something that can be exercised on an ad hoc basis for up to a week without any council action, at least?
Correct. So the mayor would be allowed to authorize executive orders.
So this takes it just for an additional 30-day period rather than coming back to every city council meeting and reauthorizing it?
Correct.
All right, thank you.
Any further questions, Council? How would you like to motion to move forward, suspend the rules? It's really just to keep that avenue open.
Motion to move it forward.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Ross, to move ordinance 2020-30 on to the next meeting.
Mayor?
Alderman McClanathan?
To keep this in continuation for today, is there a request to suspend the rules? Is there a request from the administration to suspend the rules?
Is there a motion to that second?
Second.
We have a motion made by
I'll
Alderman
make a motion, just for clarity. I'll make a motion. It was a question, but if the answer is yes, that you are looking for suspension of the rules, so there's continuation through.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, then I didn't want it to be, I wanted to be clear on the
Yes.
record then. Okay, I'll make
Yes.
the motion.
Yes, because it's just a formality to be able to keep that going, so we don't lose traction on any funding. We have a motion made by Alderman McClanathan, seconded by Alderman Ross for the suspension of the rules. Suspension of the rules is non-debatable and must pass by a 2/3 majority. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll on the suspension of the rules only?
Brascio?
Aye.
Mysick?
Aye.
Burberry?
Aye.
Borneman? Aye.
McClanathan,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
and Busker.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, now before you for final passage would be ordinance 2020-30. Is there any further discussion for its final passage? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Brashaw,
Aye.
Meissick,
Aye.
Berbere,
Aye.
Borneman,
Aye.
McClanathan,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
and Busker.
Aye.
And the ordinance passes 7-0.
Thank you. Item number 10 is first reading of ordinance 2020-31. Could you please read this?
An ordinance adopting a revised City of Freeport Employee Handbook.
Thank you. Manager Bucus.
Thank you, Your Honor. We're looking at amending one major section of our employee handbook, and that's the social media policy that we have within there. One thing we're looking at is that that the amendment would include guidelines for the official use of the social media accounts, and right now we limit personal use so that employees cannot use our social media for personal reasons. But the main purpose of this addendum is that the social media accounts are not a public forum. We use them as a way of as pushing out additional information. That's basically on our website. All commentary functions should be disabled with this new policy that we have. That we're setting a permit only for viewing only. Like I said, it's not to set up a form. So if somebody does respond to something we have posted, it will be hidden and nobody will be reading it. That's the goal of this amendment, along with a few other things that are in it. But that's the main purpose of the amendment.
Madam Mayor?
Alderman Busker.
Yes, with this amendment, is that just for employees not to comment on certain posts, or would that be for if the public were to comment on a post?
It would be for everyone. It's not, what we're looking at, we don't want to have a public forum. We're looking at using our social media basically to push information out, not as a debate mechanism.
Thank you.
And I can speak.
Madam Mayor.
Alderman Borneman.
Thank you. Manager Bucus, this might seem kind of poor timing maybe to the public. This isn't in response to any recent events, is that right?
That's correct. We've been working on this for a couple of months now.
And a follow-up?
Sure.
What's the significance of not creating a public forum? I don't know if maybe you or maybe the attorney, Zito, would like to comment on the legal significance of that.
I can speak to that. Ultimately, the issue with a public forum and the comments that are made on whether it's Twitter or Facebook and the such is we can't keep a record of it. These social media accounts, we don't have a mechanism to be able to take a screenshot of every single comment that might be made, and then ultimately they could be deleted there. And then from a public records standpoint for FOIA and the such, now we have a record that doesn't exist anymore. So that was the problem. And so based off of best practices put out by the Secretary of State's office, they suggested that on all social media accounts that a community limit or take away the ability for people to post comments there. And that way we are only pushing information out, and it's used as a means of disseminating information, but not for information to come back in to us so that we avoid any issues with record keeping. There's not at this time, to my understanding and speaking with other communities, there's not a ton of great software that would basically keep a photocopy, so to speak, or a copy of every single comment that's ever made on Twitter or Facebook there. And given the nature of these social media pages, people have the ability to remove their posts or whatever at will. So it's very difficult to have someone constantly having to take a screenshot. Likewise, every little bit of, for example, on a thumbs up on on Twitter or on Facebook, that's all considered to be information that we would have to keep a record of for purposes of FOIA there. So it's just easier from a logistics standpoint so that we're not missing anything to disable that comment function.
Mayor?
Alderman McClanahan?
Thank you. So you're also going to disable, like you said, responses, not just comments, but also responses on this?
Correct. So the city would be able to put out a post, for example, we're flushing fire hydrants, but then no member from the public would be able to say, hey, that's a great idea, or that's a bad idea, or could you change the date, or what are the dates that you're flushing there. So it would literally just be a means of distributing information.
Follow-up, Mayor?
Sure.
Is this codifying something you guys have already been doing for a while? And the reason I ask that is because often when I see city posts, like I don't, it might show, like it might say like 3 comments, but then nothing's visible. So is this something that you've already put in place at some level that you're just, or you've been trying it or rolling it out, and or is that just a different function?
No, we've been trying that because we just don't have the manpower to look at our Facebook page every day and every minute to see what's being posted. And so we've been trying to find a way that we can hide, so to speak, the comments that come in so that other people can't see them, because then it just starts a debate, and we can't get involved in debates on our social media. We just don't have the manpower.
A further follow-up, Mayor? With the interest of putting out information and using these exclusively to put out information, is the share option still functional? So if somebody says, I want to share this information that's being disseminated, they can do so?
Yes.
Further follow-up, Mayor? Thank you, legal counsel, for indicating some of the origin of this came from the Secretary of State. How else are other communities, how recent was that recommendation? 2, have other communities adopted this? Is this the majority of how municipalities govern this? Are we starting a new, is this a new thing for us? Give me some background on that, please.
I believe the piece that came out from the Secretary of State's office was maybe within the last year or so. I know that at least in another one of the communities that I represent, that they are looking at this issue as well, just because the IT director there, ran across the issue of, I don't know how to keep a record of all this stuff. We don't have the technology or the software available to constantly be able to capture a screenshot for purposes of FOIA or whatever it is for record keeping of every single time someone likes a post or makes a comment to a post or something like that, that the technology just isn't there, or if it is there, it's very, very expensive because you have to have someone constantly monitoring everything that a member of the public could comment back on a post that the city puts up.
Mayor, this is Borneman again.
Alderman Borneman?
Would a member of the public with a Facebook account still be able to tag the city's website in a comment if they were wanting to make a complaint about something?
And I apologize, Alderman Bourne, because I don't have a Facebook account, so I'm not exactly sure how that works. So if you could explain that a little bit to me, I might be able to, what it means to tag, so to speak, I guess.
For instance, I've just, somebody writes, I'm having trouble with my garbage pickup. What's the deal? And then they kind of tag or link the City of Freeport City Hall, our Facebook page.
Kurt?
So is that still going to be a possibility, or do you?
I think that probably would, just because that's a function on their Facebook account. However, I don't think the city would necessarily then respond to that, because we're trying not to create public forums, because the moment that you have any dialogue back and forth, they post a quote that says, I'm having problems with my garbage, we respond back and say, oh, well, what's the problem, or this or that, then all of a sudden now we're having a dialogue back and forth, and that's what we're trying to avoid doing for purposes of FOIA, as well as then just record retention there, because again, all of these are considered to be records that we then all of a sudden have to abide by the Local Records Retention Act.
We also have iWorks to use if somebody wants to file a complaint. And I'm not sure, Kurt, I think on our website you can also leave a message for us. There again, I'm not a Facebook person either, so.
iWorks would be the best way to do any of that, because we can capture that communication. I guess that's the whole crux of the whole issue, is we can't capture that government communication. The website, I don't believe we allow that either at the moment, but it's something we could work on.
Right. I think the main point of this ordinance is to limit comments to posts that we make on our social media accounts, not necessarily what someone else can do via their own social media account.
Mayor.
Alderman McClanathan?
So if I understand you correctly, then your answer to Alderman Borneman's question is anybody can tag City Hall as much as they want on a post, just don't expect a response from the Facebook post. You might get a response from a phone, from Public Works or something like that if it's, if it's an issue that gets, disseminated through it. But we're not limiting what somebody posts on their page and things of that nature. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right.
Anything else, Council?
Yeah, Mayor, follow up.
Alderman McClanathan?
As you've been rolling this out, has there been any feedback in regards to this? Positive or negative? If someone said, hey, why can't I comment on, this link or this article?
People have been commenting on our links, as far as we could tell, and we've never responded to them. So, because it's hidden, we don't look at it. We don't see it. We just don't have time to monitor it. And we basically push information out on it, and that's all we do. I don't know when the last time we used a Twitter account. It's been probably a couple of years.
Follow up, Mayor.
Sure.
So if somebody wants to get a hold of City Hall on any issue, what are the various ways that somebody can contact City Hall outside of commenting on a Facebook article? Or, sorry, not a Facebook article, but a City of Freeport Facebook post.
They could call us. They could use if it's somebody like a pothole or trash or whatever, they could use iWorks. They could also go to our website, and we've got a contact section there that they could email us.
And also TextMyGov has been very beneficial using that route as well, TextMyGov. But calling is always the best way, because then you can talk to a person directly about whatever the issue is. So we've never not returned a call. That's just always the best route to go.
Mayor?
Kurt.
Okay. On the Facebook page, there, up in the upper right, there is a Contact Us button that will take you straight to the contacts page of the website. That'll show you any phone number for any department that you want to reach.
Mayor,
Alderman Borneman?
thank you. I guess my bigger concern is from the perspective of city posts a news article about something it's planning on doing or is doing. The public then wouldn't be able to comment on that. There's no issue with restriction of the citizens to comment on a government site or topic.
And I think my response to that is that we're not limiting people's ability to comment. They can certainly come to Village Hall still and speak during public comment. They can certainly voice their opinion in any other forum. It's just that on social media sites, it becomes an issue because a lot of the comments are constantly changing, whether sometimes it's as simple as certainly a written comment that the citizen leaves up and doesn't delete, that's not the issue, but it's the ones that are constantly, I posted it, then I deleted it, or if it's not necessarily even a full-blown sentence that they write, they just either thumbs up or thumbs down something, which can constantly change. We don't have the technology to capture that information so that it can then be kept for record purposes, because each one of those is a record. And that's the issue where the Secretary of State was saying, because if a record is created, that thumbs up, you have to be able to then to capture that, whether it's via a screenshot, print it out, or whatever it is. Otherwise, we aren't abiding by the Local Records Retention Act. So therefore, their recommendation has been to say, if you use your social media accounts just as a mechanism to distribute information, then you won't run into those sorts of issues there. Again, if there is a topic, that anyone wants to discuss, then certainly they still have all the traditional mechanisms of coming to a public meeting, meeting with their alderpersons, sending in a letter, calling to ask questions or voice their opinion or express an issue with that particular, whatever the post was there. It's just not via the actual social media account.
Mayor.
Alderman McClanathan?
Okay, so thank you for, like, right in the middle of what you said there, but yeah, if I heard you correctly, you said the Secretary of State's guidance is if you're not capturing every single entity, you're not in compliance with the Open Records Act, which creates its own other can of worms. And you're saying, practically speaking, there's no way, I mean, it's not even possible to have somebody, I mean, if you had an employee whose entire job was to sit there and take screenshots of your social media accounts, unless they're doing it 24/7, there's no practical way you can come into compliance with what the Secretary of State's saying. Is that correct?
Correct.
All right. I appreciate the clarity on that.
Anything further, council? Is there a motion to move this forward?
I will make a motion to table it until the next council meeting. If there isn't going to be a motion to move it forward, I don't want to see it. I'd like to look into it more rather than have it not pass.
Is this Mayor?
Alderman McClanathan?
This is on a first reading for an ordinance?
That would be correct. So there still is discussion time.
And no one's requesting suspension of the rules that we're aware of?
That's correct.
Okay, so we would get that time anyway. In that light, and I appreciate Alderman Bourneman's comments in regards to that. I'll make a motion to move it forward, and with encouragement that if there's further questions in regards to the implications of this policy, let's flesh it out between now and second reading on it.
And just for a point of clarification, in light of Alderman McClanathan's motion to move it forward, Alderman Bourneman, would you withdraw your motion to table this?
I would. Mine was kind of contingent on there not being a motion anyway, but I would withdraw it. I will withdraw it.
Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion made by Alderman McClanathan, seconded by Alderman Ross to move ordinance 2020-31 onto the next regularly scheduled meeting. Item number 11 is the first reading of ordinance 2020-32. Madam Clerk, would you please read this?
Ordinance amending section 220.11 of the codified ordinances regarding council committees to create a new committee to be known as the Social Justice Committee.
Thank you. Manager Bucas.
Thank you, Your Honor. What we're proposing at this time is a committee made up of approximately 15 members of the community, including elected officials, the chief of police, the fire chief. What we're looking at doing is setting up a committee that we could form a dialogue with members throughout the community to create a plan of action to help combat systematic racism, social disparities, and injustice. What we're looking at is the mayor serving on this committee as well as one alderperson, the police chief, fire chief, and as I said, 12 members from the community as well. This committee, the terms on the committee is 6 months. Hopefully within 6 months we could sit down and look at what the issues are, what might possibly be some solutions, and move forward. If we need to, we can always extend those terms as well. This committee or this ordinance also acknowledges that there's negative effects of racism and injustice in this society, and that we want to discuss and identify and examine the root issues that are contributing these issues as well. And I think that the meetings will be set up by the chair and co-chair. The chairperson would be the mayor, and then, like I said, we'd have 12 public members as well. What we're proposing is that council approve the committee tonight, and then at our next meeting, we'll have a list of potential members to serve on the committee for council to approve at that time.
Madam Mayor?
Alderman Misick.
In reviewing this document, it appears to be really a step in the right direction, and I really support the efforts here to make sure that we have a good public voice, and that we're able to really take a close look at these items, because we know that we have some challenges, and this is really a good mechanism to capturing those things and being able to bring them to the council for action. So I strongly support this, and I'm happy to see this getting traction. Thank you.
Yes, the real desire of this is to be able to discuss, learn, identify, and examine what those root issues are. Unless we examine the bottom line of what the causes are, it's kind of a pointless committee. So that's why we want to do that. And so really we want to bring a whole new element into the community as far as these social justices throughout all of our Freeport institutions, actually. So I believe it's a step in the right direction, and until we get that moving, nothing changes. We have to do something different. Different people to the table, people with fresh eyes, new ideas, and I believe that's where our change is going to come from. So the sooner we can get that committee stood up, the better.
Madam Mayor.
Alderman Busker.
Yes, talking about forming the committee here, public comments, there was comments made of reaching outside the normal group that likes to volunteer for everything and kind of go, is there a plan of how we're going to recruit people to be on this committee? Is there a plan to go out?
Yeah, actually, we've had many people reaching out to us, offering their input and serving, and not just being on a committee, but just giving input on different things that they've learned over their lifetimes. And so, yes, we want to have a complete diverse group, from the majority of those that sit on the committee to being our African American committee members. And then, of course, then we've got a few Hispanic and then a few white individuals that will be on this, and evenly split between male and female, but mostly new committee members.
Thank you. Make a motion to move it forward.
Madam Mayor.
Alderman Brashaw.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, I want to commend you for helping put this together. This is just a step in the right direction, I believe. It's a start. My question is this. I am supportive of this, but do we have a specific template to follow based on what other communities have done for improved communication?
Alderman Bradshaw, this is Aaron. I don't think we have necessarily a specific template that we've modeled off of any particular community. Obviously, this is somewhat of a new area there, but the format of the ordinance itself was modeled off of our other committees that we've stood up there. But ultimately, as the mayor had indicated, concepts already of making sure that the bulk of the committee members are new to the committee concept, in the sense that they don't serve on prior, Freeport committees, so that we're not getting the same people volunteering, that we're getting some fresh ideas there, and then obviously making sure that there is the vast majority being, a minority representation of new people, first-time committee members there.
And Alderman Brashaw, this is going to be a learn-as-you-go kind of thing. That's why we're asking for a 6-month commitment from individuals that will be a part of this, because we don't know what it's going to look like. And, we're not positive what the long and short-term goals are, but those are things that we all need to flesh out. So, and then what does that mean? Does that mean that after 6 months that the committee gets bigger? Does it mean it gets smaller? Do we break up into smaller groups? Do we, there's a lot of things that need to be thought through because we are treading on new ground. We don't know the answers. So we just want to stay open and learn and make the best decisions for the community as a whole. So I hope that answered your questions.
Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Burberry?
thank you very much. Is this committee, will it be subject to the Open Meetings Act?
Yes, it will.
So that those individuals who may have complained about not having social media to respond to, they could come to public meetings here and use this forum to communicate their thoughts, their inputs?
Correct. So this will be a meeting that complies with the Open Meetings Act. So an agenda will always be posted at least 48 hours in advance. The time, place, date of the meetings will always be posted. They will be open to the public.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Busker?
making a motion to move it forward.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Ross to move ordinance 2020-32 forward, and I would request that, if it so please the council, that we suspend the rules so we can get this moving.
Motion to move.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Burberry, seconded by Alderman Busker for the suspension of the rules. Once again, suspension of the rules is non-debatable and must pass by a 2/3 majority. Madam Clerk, could you please take the roll on the suspension of the rules only?
Brashaw,
Aye.
Mysick,
Aye.
Burberry,
Aye.
Borneman, Aye. McClanathan,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
and Busker.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, now before you, council, is the final passage of this ordinance 2020-32. Any further discussion?
Mayor,
Alderman McClanathan.
thank you. A lot of thoughts on this topic, but first, let me say, in regards to the committee, I do believe it's a good idea, and I hope it bears some very good productive fruit and changes. What we've noticed in this community, and I think highlighted by the positive events on Saturday, and then there was also a follow-up meeting on Sunday, and listening to people. We talk about who's going to be on a committee or who's not going to be on a committee. This committee is just a fraction of what I think things look like, and where mechanisms of change will develop out of. I think it could be very productive. I think it can be very insightful and very the impetus for certain things. However, I do want to challenge us all individually. We all come from different backgrounds. We all come from different experiences. You could make this a 500-member committee, and that's still not going to be enough to address everybody's individual thoughts, feelings, perspectives, and ideas on this. So what I've seen over the last week, and frankly, I've spent a lot of it not talking a lot, but doing a lot of listening, and I pledge from my end that's a start in regards to listening. So what I encourage you is, instead of tearing down a committee, condemning it to failure from the start, take your own part too. There's nothing on here. Again, I think you're going to have the most positive community change if all of our different perspectives are coming together. We're each taking, first of all, an individual look. Because let's be honest, we all have blind spots here in regards to what it takes to make this community better. I get 1,000 people well, we can't get 1,000, but I get 1,000 people out here, and I ask you, what is the primary way that you can do to make this community better? You're going to have at least 700 different opinions in regards to that. So
So I guess my encouragement, my admonition to the community is, if we're going to build on the positive momentum that many people have expressed from this weekend, it's up to all of us in regards to that. So if it means bringing your expertise and calling an alderman, if it means bringing your neighbors together, if it means having your own initiatives that you go forward and put through, do it. And I think that's where we're going to see the most effective change here. So as this committee gets off to a start, and again, I appreciate that it's here, and I appreciate it's a mechanism and it's a function. I just don't want it to be the only aspect of it, and I don't want any of us to use it as an excuse for inaction on our own parts too. Back to the committee itself, though, I feel very strongly that I really like the structure that you have a mayor, alderperson, and then 12 members of the public. So we're not overloading it with just internal perspective here from the council. However, if we as council members are going to be effective, this isn't like the planning commission or the zoning commission where you already got a cookie cutter approach where we feed information through and then bring it to council and say, here's where it's going. So I think it's important that all the council members be at the table with one distinction. I'm very comfortable with having only, the mayor and one alderperson having voting privileges. But I do think in order for each one of us here at the table and the other two members that are on here to be able to meaningfully engage with this committee, we need to have, I think, ad hoc privileges where we can sit and speak, but not have voting privileges in regards to that. So I'd be interested in hearing what the rest of my colleagues think on that, but if there is some agreement, I'd like to make that motion amending it that all the members of the council are ad hoc members, even though only one of them is going to have voting privileges. Because it's very important that we don't put our thumb on the scale too much, but it's also very important that we're engaged and none of us are just sitting back and letting the committee do the work and then coming back later on and trying to figure out what we're doing afterwards.
I would second that. And the reason I second it, not only what Peter said, is because we as a council have the responsibility to, in a municipal way, move this city forward. And the things that are going to be discussed at this meeting, at this committee, the ideas that are going to come out of it, the plans that are going to come out of it are going to affect our budget, our operations, our staffing, revenue sources, all those things that we think about from meeting to meeting to meeting in between are all going to be impacted if indeed there's going to be true change. Thank you.
You have a motion to amend the ordinance as presented. That was motion second, so you would just take a vote on that amendment, on the amendment only, and then that revised version of the ordinance now there's already previously a motion and a second to move it forward, so that's what you guys would then decide next, if you guys want to suspend the rules or not on. So after that.
Mayor,
Alderman Bourne.
thank you. To Mr. McLean, I think, can you elaborate on what you mean by ad hoc members?
Individuals who can be present at the meeting and ask questions and discuss, but when it comes to voting, not have voting privileges. So rather than us as council members sitting back and waiting until the next, some other time in regards to that, we can again ask questions, ask for follow-up, say what do you mean in regards to that? What does this look like? Because I don't want to get to 6 months down the road and then there's just some recommendations and then 7 council members are just starting the process of engagement. I think it's going to be a better. I think we will have a better product at a council level if we're sitting there engaging with the community. But again, I don't want to put our thumb, so that's why I say I don't want to put the thumb on the scale though either. So that's why I say it's an individual who has the ability to speak during the meeting but doesn't have voting privileges. And you see that in other committees where sometimes, let's say you have an executive director who's a member of a board but doesn't have voting privileges. They're there at the discussion, but they're not voting on the items. Did that adequately follow up?
Madam Mayor?
It did.
Alderman Misick.
I feel a bit differently about this. I see the structure exactly as it's laid out and giving the voice to the community in this and recognizing that I'll just lay out a scenario here that if I was not a member of the committee and I decided to attend just as an observer, to allow the committee itself to have those conversations. And it's the seat at the table, the 12 people in addition to the mayor and the single council person of vote, is to attend the meeting and to see the direction that it's going, but to allow that conversation to happen with those committee members. I really feel that the voice of the public does need to really be the resounding voice. And I see it as people who can be feeding in and speaking with their respective, the member of the committee they most resonate with, to have conversations with that person and to say, here, I'd like my ideas to be presented. If it becomes too large of a committee, it becomes a bit unruly in that sense. So having it just limited to those 12 who can speak during the meeting, I believe can be an effective way of doing that. Again, I think we're learning as we go here. So there's a lot to be said for just having those conversations initially. The structure of how we do that really is an important aspect, and I think it may be helpful to see how committees like this that have been successful. I have, in my own experience in the work that I do find that there are times to have discussions with a larger group and then to focus and come together and be actionable on a smaller scale. So I see the benefits and the drawbacks of this, but I highly would suggest keeping this structure as it's originally written, from the perspective of getting that true voice of the community and letting them be the major voice. When it comes to going to actionable steps and making recommendations, the council will be the ones putting those things into action. So the council still very much does have a voice in this, and it's allowing for that conversation really to take place. Thank you.
Anything else concerning the amendment, council? Then let's take the vote on the amendment only for the ad hoc members to be a part of that. The motion was made by Alderman McClanathan, seconded by Alderman Berberet. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll on that amendment only?
Brashaw?
Aye.
Mysick?
No.
Berberet?
Aye.
Bourne?
No.
McClanathan?
Aye.
Ross?
Aye.
Busker?
No.
Motion passes 4-3.
Okay, so now before you, in its final, for its final passage is, right?
Suspend
Yeah.
the rules.
Is ordinance 2020-32 as amended. Any further discussion concerning the entire package as amended? Madam Clerk, please take the roll.
Brashaw?
Aye.
Mysick?
Aye.
Berberet?
Aye.
Bourne?
Aye.
McClanathan?
Aye.
Ross?
Aye.
And Busker.
Aye.
The ordinance passes 7-0.
Thank you, Council. We will have names for approving on this committee, just as you do any other boards or commissions that are before this. So whether you take them individually or you take them as a group, we'll do the same thing as we normally do. Item number 12 is the adoption of Resolution 2020-30. Could you please read this?
One moment, please. Resolution of the City of Freeport setting forth guidelines and expectations associated with the reopening of certain businesses which have been closed as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic.
Manager Bucus.
Thank you, Your Honor. We're moving quite rapidly from being a stay-in-place order to our Phase 3. but there's still quite a few businesses that cannot open, that would like to open, and are planning to open. What this resolution says is that the city makes no determination as to whether or not any business should or can open under what restrictions they may operate under, and that we make no determination as to whether any state-issued licenses could be affected by reopening. Individuals and businesses that are licensed by the state must consult with their private legal counsel concerning the potential consequences of any actions inconsistent with the governor's latest order. This resolution, should it pass, is simply an effort to strike a balance between the health concerns related to COVID-19 and protecting the livelihoods of our citizens and our businesses. So what we're looking at here, Your Honor, is a resolution supporting the businesses but not telling them that they have to open or they can open, but just giving them some guidelines if they do open, and that's not in harmony with the governor's latest executive order or our Phase 3 plan.
Right, and let me just give you a little update from this morning from, we still meet once a week with the health department and many officials throughout the community and in the county. So just to let you know some statistics. According to the governor's Phase 3, there needs to be at or under 20% of the positivity rate. And we are currently, as of yesterday, in our region, we are at 5%. So we are far, far underneath those numbers. Also, there is to be no increase in hospital rates. And in our region, we are, not only do we not have the increase, we actually are decreasing. Last number decrease was 21%. Since the beginning of May, it's gone down 35% decrease, and then in the middle of May, it was a 44% decrease, and as of yesterday, it's 21% decrease. Also, according to the governor's guidelines, there's to be a available surge capacity of at least 14% for ICU beds. ICU beds currently are at 47% in our region. 49%. And as of this morning, we had no one in our ICU that was COVID related. Ventilators in our region is at 73%. As of this morning, we had no one on a ventilator. And then in our region for medical surgical beds, we're at 47%. This morning, we had one positive case that was still in the hospital and recovering well. So the nuts and bolts of this is really about being consistent with our percentages in our businesses. And the sad part of it is moments away, you can get anything you want in Wisconsin, and all the while our businesses are suffering. So how do we allow them to be able to operate and be able to hopefully get some sort of recovery into saving their business? Because quite honestly, several of them have called me and said if something doesn't change soon, they no longer will be able to open. So the numbers right now, it's a 10% capacity, a 10-person limit, which obviously even right now we're over that 10-person. And so 10 persons in one store is not the same for 10 persons in another. I have been an advocate since the beginning that if big box can be safe, so can our small local run businesses. If you can put hundreds of people in Walmart, why can you not put hundreds of people that are, just as an example, with Grand River that was here this evening, at 50% capacity, that's 175, at 50% capacity. And who's to say that you can even make money at 50% capacity? So this is really about doing percentages, not putting a cap on numbers. Even in Phase 4, it's a 50-person limit. If you put 50 people in Pub 219, they are a happy crowd. You put 50 people in Wagner House, they're crying and wondering how they're going to open tomorrow. So the number singly just doesn't work. And so if we keep people safe at 50%, or 75% eventually, or however that plays out, I can assure you that there is not one business that has come to me in any type of defiance. They have come to say, we have a plan, allow us to work our plan. And most of these have gone to the health department and laid out plans, and they're very well thought through, and I'm complete confidence that they can keep their customers safe. And so, and I just want to put one more piece in there as far as restaurants and bars are concerned. Right now, it stands at being able to have your service outside. I personally think that's a joke, just because that's all conditioned by the weather. If it's windy, if it's hot, if it's raining, they're not going to make a dime. And even at 50%, they're barely breaking even, because that's how restaurant numbers work. And so we have to allow them to be able to get their customers inside. I mean, tell me the first one that's going to raise their hand and make a reservation to sit on a hot asphalt and eat some wonderful pasta that someone makes. You're just not going to do it. So we have to allow our business to be able to make money. And so I believe that it's time to shift from that everyone quarantine thought to, obviously, if they're sick, people need to stay home. You need to take responsibility for yourself. And I know there's great follow-up with the health department, and the hospital's doing a great job there. So I just have confidence in our community, and I hate to see all of the monies being spent across the border, and our citizens are suffering. So that's the teeth behind why this ordinance was pulled together. So questions?
Madam Mayor.
Alderman Isaac.
To make a comment on this, I strongly support for having avenues for local businesses really to be back into operations, limited obviously for safety purposes. And in this, obviously, we have many stores, big box stores, that have been able to continue their operations. And what I have seen in this presentation is every single control that's there for a big box store is also there for the small businesses. And I'm in strong support of this, because our businesses here in this town certainly need to have their livelihood back. And this puts us a step in that direction and allows us to give our support to them, to do what we can do to help support them in it. And I see that it's very comprehensive in saying we still have there are some limitations, there are some things to follow as to keep in the realm of safety. And I believe this is a very good plan, and I support it. Thank you.
Thank you. And just so you know, the Greater Freeport Partnership is in support of this. They have worked on a plan called Clean Hands, Open Doors, where they're encouraging businesses to take that pledge that their number one priority is safety for their customers. So when they take that pledge, it'll, there's all kinds of mechanisms in there to help people to remain safe. And by all means, no one is saying you have to do this. It's just saying that you can if you choose. It's on you however you choose to pull that together. And obviously, we would never say, you have to support this business or that business. It's a matter of the freedom of choice on that.
Madam Mayor.
Alderman Ross.
Yes, I'm also totally in favor of this. There's been a couple of us that's been able to keep our boat afloat through the whole pandemic. But then again, you have other people, independent business owners that have been not. So I would say let's go ahead, move this forward, because that's what we need to do, in my own opinion, and get those independent business owners back on track and make it better for everybody. That's it.
Mayor?
Alderman Bourne.
Thank you. On the resolution, the bottom of the first page, the final full whereas, I'm looking at it here. It mentions a district court judge that found the executive order unconstitutional. I think
sorry.
that's a typo.
Can you say that again? Where are you at?
So on page 1, at the bottom, the final full whereas, where it mentions the Bailey v. Pritzker case.
I'm with you so far, Eric.
Okay, so it says finding by a district court judge that the order was unconstitutional. Wasn't that a circuit court judge?
Yes, you're right.
So that's because the district court judge actually ruled that it was constitutional in the federal circuit, but there hasn't been an Illinois district court judge to rule on it, right?
Correct. That should be a circuit court judge because I was at the state level.
Okay.
Instead of district court judge,
Circuit court.
And one follow-up question.
Alderman Borneman.
This resolution does not allow businesses to open, right?
It does not make the determination. What it does is sets guidelines and expectations.
So, but it doesn't allow them, as in they can open and not have to worry about their liquor license being taken away.
No, in the ordinance, it says that if you have any type of state license, it is advised that you seek your own counsel and weigh out your own risks. We all know that there have been many remarks made that there's a threat to having licenses revoked, and all throughout the state. And as of today, I don't believe that anyone has had their license revoked.
Okay, so that's the assurance then that we're offering with
Correct.
this ordinance?
Correct.
Mayor?
Alderman McClanathan.
Well, I don't think we want to offer any assurance one way or the other, frankly.
And-
I think the language says that, but I want to be very clear. I don't think we offer any assurance to anybody. I don't think we make a recommendation, and I don't think we should. I don't want. I could get bogged down and argue one way or the other in regards to the whereases and things of that nature. The one and you can argue in regards to the practical impact and the practical level of enforcement at a local level or not to date and going forward. I mean, I'm aware of only I think one thing that could be maybe even argued as potential enforcement in this local region, but so like I said, not getting into any of that. The one benefit I do see in regards to this is kind of at the other extreme end. We are seeing a reality of businesses kind of wanting to do, kind of trying to take matters into their own hands. They see the Wisconsin situation, they see the Iowa situation, they see other municipalities saying this is okay, and starting to do that. I think the one thing that this does help us with on the other end is it says this isn't this isn't open season here in regards to this. If you make that determination, and like I said, we can see the level of enforcement to date, but this does say that if you do make that determination and go forward, these are the things we are going to be looking for, because and I think if we do run into a situation where basically anything goes, that is going to be problematic, and that it would lead to some local enforcement. I don't know that we've seen that to date, but as the numbers of municipalities and states around us go to that approach, I can see some benefit to saying, folks, if you do make this decision, please know this is what we expect. But again, to the point that I said at the beginning, I want it made very clear, I don't think anybody makes any representation as to whether you should or shouldn't under that, and proceed at your own risk, but the rest of that says if you are proceeding, this is the types of things that are going to trigger the city's attention if you do so.
Yeah, you're right, Alderman McClanathan. It is no way does it say we are open season. And yes, I apologize. I should not have agreed with the word assurance, but rather it's clarity that this is guidelines, strict guidelines, and what we would like to see happen when people do decide to open up, and that they need to evaluate what their own risk is. Attorney Zito?
And I would echo that Alderman McClanathan and the mayor have just summarized how this resolution is actually written. Again, as Manager Buke has stated, that the city is by no means saying anybody is authorized to open or at what level or have people sit inside if they're a restaurant or anything of that nature. We're saying that if you choose to open or do something that is not necessarily in line with the Restore Illinois timeline, and you choose to make that decision, that's fine. But in doing so, we would ask you to please keep in mind some guidelines for safety measures there, and these are the ones that we as a city would like to see you adhere to. Again, so it's just continuing education to reiterate to those business owners that, hey, please keep in mind some safety precautions as well, because we're not completely through this pandemic.
Any further discussion, council?
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Brashaw?
thank you. I would like to make a motion to adopt Resolution R-2020-30.
Second.
If there's no further discussion, we have a motion made by Alderman Brashaw, seconded by Alderman Misick for the adoption of Resolution 2020-30. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll?
Brashaw,
Aye.
Misick,
Aye.
Barbaray,
Aye.
Borneman,
No.
McClanathan,
Aye.
Ross,
Aye.
and Busker.
Aye.
Motion passes 6-1.
Thank you. Item number 13 is the motion to approve a bid for opening that was May 29th for lead service line replacement. Director Kopansky.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. The agenda item that is in front of you, in front of the board, has to do with lead service line replacement. In various capital improvement projects, it's been communicated that we have approximately 2,800 lead service lines out of a total population of roughly 13,000 lead service lines. What we have done, and previously we've had Fairgram to go and do a design contract to write bid documents. It's been put out on the street. We had 5 contractors to present us with their bid spec as to what they would do the work for. Out of those 5 bidders, N-Track out of Loves Park was the lowest responsive bid. And basically, with the amount of work that we're going to do, we've secured an IEPA loan in the amount of $2 million to where the whole $2 million is forgivable, and $1.8 million will do actual work, whilst $200,000 will handle the administrative costs of handling this project. So N-Track is the lowest bidder, and we're seeking approval with this. We will look to probably have them start the project around September, October. It will be worked on until snow season comes, and then the majority of the work will be done next in 2021.
Madam Mayor.
I'll stand by for questions.
Alderman Brashaw here.
I just have one comment that the majority of the work's going to take place, I believe it's in the 5th Ward, the Adams corridor around Shawnee. I believe out of the 258 services, 250 of them are in that area.
Alderman Brashaw.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Were we able to verify that the N-Track group has met all of the IEPA loan requirements?
Yes, Alderman Brashaw. It's been reviewed, and N-Track has met all the IEPA requirements.
Thank you, Director.
Alderman Misick.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Director, can you share with us also, I understand for this action tonight, we have all of the grant money secured. Can you share with us as well when when we may have access to additional funding. So this obviously takes us through this year. When is this process renewing?
Let's see, each and every year, the state fiscal year begins July 1st, ends June 30th, and each year what may or may not be available for forgiveness changes. So, we have this component right now that is 100% forgivable. What's to say if it will or won't be? I have no answer.
We were hoping that we'd go through a couple of cycles at $2 million, but as Director Krapansky mentioned, we don't know what the next round may be, but that's our goal, and that's what's in our capital plan right now.
Very good. Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Alderman Ross?
This question can be for either Adam Holder or Director Tom. You said there's 258 of them. Wouldn't that also be the 3rd and the 5th ward?
Let's see. In the map, the majority of them are in the 5th ward, and I believe there may be some in the 3rd ward. I don't have that map in front of me to take a look. And then I think there's a couple over on Hardin, which I'm not too sure exactly what ward that is. But it's basically in the Adams corridor, little east, little west of there.
A follow-up, Mayor. At one time, we spoke about the arcade with the lead services over there. Is that included in this, or that's something different?
Let's see, that, you're right. The arcade is included. So the full arcade will be done.
Yes, that's in the 3rd ward.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes, the arcade is in the 3rd ward.
Okay, just reconfirming. Thank you.
Madam Mayor,
Alderman Busker.
motion to approve the bid.
Second it.
We have a motion made by Alderman Busker, seconded by Alderman Ross. Unless there's any further discussion. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll on the approval of the bid?
Brashaw. Misick.
Aye.
Berberay.
Aye.
Borneman.
Aye.
McClanathan.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
And Busker.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. Next is the department heads, and we'll start with the City of Freeport with Finance. And Community and Economic Development.
Nothing to report, Your Honor. Thank you.
Public Works.
Nothing at this time, Your Honor. Caught me sleeping.
That's okay. Fire.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We've been working diligently with all of our fire department operations. Have been ongoing. We had another fire at 616 Adams Street on Friday last week. It was a small mattress fire. Single alarm assignment was able to handle that pretty well. There were no injuries, and the single occupant of the home was displaced, and we were attempting to get assistance for that family yet today with the Red Cross. Other than that, we have one paramedic that's continuing his education in school. He is just about done with all the classroom portion of his training, but as a result of the COVID-19, his clinic, he's behind on his clinicals. The hospital wouldn't allow him to complete all of his clinicals, so we're still working on that. Other than that, it's business as usual. Any questions from the council? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief. Police.
I just kind of want to report on, in 25 years of policing, this has been the longest 2 weeks that I've been here at the police department. Sunday night, Sunday afternoon, I started to get some notices that there was some people that were going to cause problems downtown. I came into work, and the first person I called, she's already talked tonight. She's passionate about our community. I called Wendy Pearson to see what she can do to help out in the situation. And she got a hold of some people. I also reached out to Pastor Fungus, who also came out. And for about 2 hours, we had a good meeting, some good conversations. But while I was down there, the police department was gathering intelligence on a certain crew that was coming downtown intent on causing destruction. Didn't matter what anybody did before that. There was a small segment that was there to create destruction downtown. And I have a lot of thanks to a lot of departments: the Stevens County Sheriff's Department, the Illinois State Police, the Ogle County Sheriff's Department, Joe Davis County Sheriff's Department, Whiteside County Sheriff's Department, Winnebago County Sheriff's Department, the Dixon Police Department, the Lanark Police Department, the Albany Police Department, and the Rochelle Police Department. All sent officers here to help secure our downtown community. This may offend some people, but I was never so proud to be a Freeport police officer in the way that our officers stood with those other officers and showed restraint and bravery in a very tough situation. Tough on both sides. No question about it, it was tough on both sides. But everybody's been asking me, and they asked me on Saturday, what am I gonna do? What am I gonna do for change? And I told people then that I'm gonna listen. I'm gonna listen to what people have to say. And that's been asked here. And I ask that we all listen to what people have to say. We're all decision makers, we all make policy. It doesn't take courage to change policy when there's nothing on the line. There's a lot on the line, just not here, but nationally. What happens in Minneapolis affects how we police here. What we do here affects how policing across America and the world can function. So we need to make sure that we're doing it right. And that's my pledge to the community, and that's my pledge to you as aldermen, that I'm here to listen. And I hope we're all here to be courageous and listen and make the changes that we need to. Just not us, but the community as a whole.
Thank you, Chief. Water and sewer.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. The one item that I wanted to communicate out word is that the drill head of the well that's being drilled at the fields of Freeport is at the 300-foot mark, so there's only another 1,000 feet left to go, but that project is moving along smoothly.
Thank you. IT. I just have one question for you, if you don't mind. As far as the budget would go with the social media discussion that we had tonight, would there be, in your opinion, a huge financial implication to archive all that social media encompasses if the council chooses not to?
I looked into that well over a year ago, and the company wanted, I don't have the exact number, it was between $2,000 and $5,000 a month to archive that. It was very cost prohibitive, in my opinion.
Appreciate that. It's just, it's too bad it comes at such a terrible timing. That's the drawback. When we work on things, people don't know that what's happening behind the scenes, and the timing's terrible. You know, we don't want to ever be accused of not following through on people talking to us, and it's literally impossible to follow that especially when we're short on manpower to begin with. And so I encourage everyone that has questions or input that you make a phone call instead, because things can be misinterpreted and forgotten or not seen or whatever you would want to say with Facebook things. But when you make a phone call and actually be able to speak with someone and be able to have some follow-up, I think it's always the best mechanism. Library.
Thank you, Mayor Miller. I just wanted to give you an update on some of our stats for May. Even though the library was closed, we did circulate 1,508 items that are located inside the library, and then we circulated 1,255 digital items, and the digital items is again up almost 50% in comparison to 2019. So we're still serving people.
And you're doing a great job, Ashley.
Thank you.
If there's nothing further for library, we'll move on to Kirsten, assistant.
Thank you. I just wanted to give an update on the census self-response rate. So we're, as of yesterday, June 7th, we're at 67.4% as a city. Our lowest response rate for one of the census tracts is at 50%, and I believe our highest is upwards of about 80%. So there is a pretty big gap in there. So I encourage anyone who's listening, if you haven't filled out your census yet, to go to my2020census.gov, or you can call 844-330-2020.
Thank you. I'm going to guess that airport is not listening. Then we move on to the Freeport Art Museum Building Assessment Study.
Good evening. I'll try to make this brief as possible. The city contracted Farrah Graham and some of our partners to do an assessment of the Art Museum on Harlem Street. In April, we completed that assessment with Mr. Judd. I did a lot of preliminary research on the facility. I actually worked with Jason directly for a few weeks trying to get plans and record information for the facility. Basically, the city of Freeport doesn't have anything on hand, and neither did the Art Museum, other than some insurance documents that reference some general sizing. The current Art Museum was established in 1975. The existing facility was actually built in 1911. Makes it 109 years old. It was a former elementary school. The facility is close to 30,000 square feet as it sits. It appeared there was some records that said there was some minor renovations in 1980. We were not able to confirm that. There has been some mechanical work done in the building. Recently, I believe there were some lighting upgrades that was done by the city on just the art exhibit floors. The Art Museum has a very large collection, and they have a numerous amount of display cases on many levels within the facility. We were surprised to see that the facility actually rents space out to exercise areas on the 4th floor, I believe it is. Our research also said that the city has no tax support. They are basically funded by grants, donations, and fees from donors that come in. As I stated, the Freeport Art Museum is really using all levels of the facility, which it is actually 4 floors, not the 3 that were shown on the insurance statements. And there is a sub-basement level as well with all the mechanicals. Our scope was to basically go through the facility and try to come up with cost estimates to bring it to a 2020 code and standards. The Director of Public Works asked us to give us a breakdown of a project-by-project estimate rather than one full scenario to do the whole work. That's what we provided. It is a very aged facility, very hard to upkeep with all the different levels, stairways that are in the facility. Good news is the building appears structurally sound from every account that we could find. There are many, many moisture concerns within the building, and most of them appear to be reoccurring for a long period of time without repair. Building drainage is a very big issue that is contributing to water within the wall cavity of the building. A special big concern are windows, doors, gutter, and I said the drainage before. Virtually every window in the building is beyond its useful life. They're dry rotted. Most of the doors outside of the front doors were rusted shut. We were actually unable to open all of them. The existing fire escapes appear to be original. We tried to actually man access one of them and retreated after about 20 feet. Soffits, fascia, overhangs, basically anything on the outside of the building made of wood is in the same state as the windows, kind of dry rotted, needs replacement. There's numerous accessibility deficiencies, including but not limited to the entrances, parking, sidewalks, restrooms, and the building as it stands as a multi-level facility is very hard on accessibility to actually even do all the repairs that would be needed. When you enter the building from the front entrances, you actually come into a mid-level platform. You don't actually enter onto the second floor. Lack of an elevator access will be very expensive to put into the building. The art museum actually uses the third floor to display art as well. There is not a way to get there that does not include a stairwell. The site parking lot is of great concern. I have a bunch of pictures that we'll go through rather quickly, but the parking lot, the accessibility disabled area is definitely not up to standards. It's mostly gravel. You can actually not access the building from that parking. You have to go all the way back out to the street to come back in the sidewalks. Mechanical, electrical, and plumbing is very aged throughout the building. There, like I said, there was some ventilation updates that were done, but those are actually getting to be to the end of their life as well. Our assessment was complete in there. We broke everything down by priorities 1 through 4. I did not include that in these slides. It's very hard to look at and long. Roughly speaking, our estimate came between $3.8 and $4.5 million to repair the building to 2020 standards. That is broke out individually, doing job by job. If you were to do it as a complete package, I would estimate you could probably get that down somewhere around $3 million, $3.2 million in whole as a one big package to renovate the entire building. The Public Works Director also asked me to give a comparison, just so the council could see. A demolition of the complete property back to a grass site would estimate about $450,000 plus environmental removals. Some of the environmental aspects that are troublesome is asbestos. Most of the pipe wrap in the building is asbestos pipe wrap, as well as the floors. There are lead paint issues there's suspected lead paint issues within the building, and there's also mold from the moisture issues that have been reoccurring. Some of the photos that I'm putting up on the slides now show the asbestos tile that is throughout the facility. Really everywhere that there's existing floor, if you pull it up, there is suspect asbestos tile below. The picture on the left kind of shows a workspace that they're in that a lot of the tile's breaking up. The picture on this slide to the left shows the rear entrance to the building that has a lot of water damage. The black tiles shown there are all asbestos tiles that are coming up and are broke up. The picture on the right is all the pipe insulation that is original from the facility. Site and drainage. The building in general has a lot of site and drainage issues. Also site and vegetation that's growing on the building. The exterior of the building, most of the side properties have overgrown vegetation that hasn't been addressed for a long time. All of the sidewalks are having accessibility issues, including the front sidewalk to the building. Looks like it recently collapsed, and so there is really no handicap access to the building right now. We already discussed the parking lots, and again, accessibility standards with the ramps are not to current codes. I highlighted some key points. The drainage on the building on these slides. These drains are actually plugged at this time, and I circled the areas. You can actually see the erosion on the foundation that's taking place as the rain comes down. It's virtually on every downspout on the building. We couldn't tell if they were plugged at this time, but it appears they had been plugged for a long time. The front of the museum has a lot of drainage that comes off. You can see in the picture on the left that the water actually runs back towards the limestone foundation. The limestone is acting very similar to a sponge and wicking the moisture back into the building. This is a common foundation for a building of this age, but is lacking waterproofing. We just added a picture of vegetation that's growing on the building that is going to add extra problems to the building in the future. Site drainage is a big issue, and I added these slides. This shows that the improvements on Harlem Street, while they were good, they have also trapped water back to the curbs, or sidewalks, excuse me, and you can see the dead grass in these areas on the left and right picture, which the right picture is the front of the building, shows all the dead grass area. That's where water is sitting from the drainage at the building. It has no way to escape. It's basically landlocked. The sidewalk entrances, the one on the left is the front access to the building. This looks like recently was damaged. I actually worked on the Harlem Street project, and I don't remember the sidewalk being in this bad of condition. I don't know why it's as broke as it is, but it actually is sinking in this area. And then the other sidewalk this is actually the access that goes down to the handicap parking, but it has steps, so it's not accessible. There's a picture of the handicap parking area, and then the entire parking lot that goes out to Clark Street, and the rear parking of the building is basically non-existent. It's pretty much gravel or broken up asphalt in its state. The good points is the structural side. The building is a solid building. We really couldn't find a lot of structural issues that can't be resolved with the building. We do believe ADA compliance will be ultimately a very expensive item to address at this facility at all entrances. One of the deficiencies we did find in structural was the roof truss bracing, which is a minor item. It just needs to have connectors. It wasn't something that was used in a building of this era. We already discussed soffits and the overhangs are dry rotted. They are in current state that need to be replaced. The biggest issue structurally with the building is the foundation wicks moisture into the building. It's never been waterproofed. Again, it's acting like a sponge. If you go into the lower levels that the art museum uses for, I believe, classrooms or young children's art projects, those rooms all smell of moisture, very hard to work in. I've got some slides that show evident waterlogging. And again, the south side of the building, there's an alcove with a door entrance. All the masonry on all 4 floors was extremely logged. We believe most of the water is getting in through the window sills that are dry rotted and coming back through the building. And also the doors, all the bases of the doors are rotted. If the moisture issues on the building aren't resolved, it is going to lead to further degradation of the foundation. It's only a matter of time. And we'll just kind of breeze through these. Again, the overhangs, the right picture shows the truss connections that need bracketing. This picture is very hard to see. This is in one of the lower level classrooms. The actual, I'm going to call it plasterboard, is basically boiling off the walls where the moisture is entering through the foundation. These lower classrooms are very musty smelling. This is a picture of the rear addition, which is still part of the foundation. This room was clearly uninhabited for a long time, and it was very moisture smelling and very actually hard to be in due to the mildew. This is a rear entrance to the door. This is where I was talking on the south side of the building that there is a ton of moisture issues on all 4 levels. This is the lowest level. You can see there's kind of mold going up the walls. And then this is actually the picture on the right's near the director's office where the plasterboard, and it extends all the way up to the ceiling, is peeling away. This is a photo of that south corner where you can see how dilapidated the windows are, which we believe a lot of the moisture issues are coming back through that into the cavity. The limestone foundation on the outside, again, this just needs a moisture proofing. The picture on the right here is the lower level, which shows a lot of the moisture wicking through. This is the entrance to the lower level. You can see the bricks are starting to peel away from repeated moisture. Architectural points, again, all the doors really had issue besides for the 2 front doors on the buildings. Windows, gutters were of issue. ADA and the lack of an elevator is one of the most expensive items in the project. Just doors kind of showing the rust. I believe out of the facility, only 2 of the doors outside of the front doors where we were able to get open. The retaining wall outside is broken half. This is again the south wall cavity where a lot of moisture is penetrating through the ceiling into all the rooms. Again, the gutters, I don't believe the gutters are sized appropriately for a building of this size. And then this would be a classic example of the windows and the state of the windows. This was a picture of the inside. We actually went in to check the inside, and the dry rot goes completely through. These are a picture of the accessibility challenges because it was a grade school. The stairwell is set up for young children. The railing system is not at an appropriate height. And then this is a picture of the actual main entrance where you come into a mid-level instead of onto an actual floor level. Finally, we're down to the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. It has a menagerie of everything in here. The building actually has 11 furnaces, 8 condensing units, 2 humidifiers, and 2 rooftop units. At least 50% of the equipment needs replacement at this time. Truthfully, the humidification is probably not adequate for an art museum and the value of property that they have in there, which they have storage on every level of the building with a lot of different items. There's many code deficiencies that the mechanical engineer noted. One of them is fresh air intake for the furnaces, duct insulation, hot water circulation, and electrical wiring look to be mostly original. I just put this note down that the day that we did the assessment, I had talked to Jason. There was actually no hot water in the building for any of the restrooms, any of the break rooms, nothing that actually worked. General lighting, some of it's been replaced, some of it's not, but the emergency lighting, a lot of that did not work on the day that we were there. And there is ultimately no complete fire suppression system for that facility. It's only an alarm system. Just some photos of some of the existing units. Took note of the Fdic condensate that is on the right-hand picture that it should be going to a drain, and they've been capturing it there. There's 4 water heaters in the facility. None of them worked on the day of the assessment. All of the main electrical equipment is overloaded, and most of these panels are very old and original. And really not adequate for the services that are being run in the building at this time. And that's all I have, if there's any questions.
Mayor?
Alderman McClanathan.
Okay, so
for history, this was a facility that was at one point given to the city, and we've had a long-term lease issues with the art museum as I guess the tenant of it. Is that accurate synopsis, or what am I missing here?
I believe so.
Okay.
I believe the senior center used to be housed there as well, but they moved out a few years ago.
Follow-up, Mayor? Obviously, it was a lot to digest, and it's tough looking through some of that when over the weekend and again tonight. I mean, I think we're obviously discussions need to be had as to what the art museum's plans are too for this unit. But I mean, is it most prudent for us to moving forward and figuring out what we're going to do in regards to that building to task you manager Bucus in regards to bringing us some options, presentations, and follow-up discussion, or what do you want and need from us in regards to feedback tonight on this?
Well, I have talked to who I hope was a potential user of it that we could rehab it, and they're not interested at this time. I did talk to to Jason and to Adam regarding the continued use by the museum. As I told them, and as I told a potential buyer or potential user, I don't have $3.8 million to $4.5 million to fix this building. And so either, and I hate to be a bearer of bad news, but I don't have the $451,000 either to tear it down. But looking at it from a practical standpoint, I would say that trying to reuse the lot would probably be our better alternative than trying to rehab the building.
Mayor? I appreciate that in regards to those two entities. I suppose let's explore what all our avenues are here, in regards to this. Because I mean, I certainly appreciate what you're saying in regards to 3.8 or 4.5 or even 3 if it's all done at once, ballpark. And I also appreciate what you're saying about the 450. So I mean, if obviously it's an age, maybe limited use, but let's I mean, to the extent we can, let's explore if there's any other potential interest out there. Because I have a hard time seeing even if you poured in 3, 3.8, 4.5, what is the city's use on this as an asset? But that said, I mean, there may be others who have a use for this outside of the city.
And as Darren mentioned, I mean, structurally it's a solid building.
Right.
I hate to lose it, but to try to go in there and rehab it for a use we have no idea what it'd be used for, or we could even find a tenant for it. We'd be better trying to either sell the building or sell the lot. But I do have a couple ideas, and I could send out some feelers as to see if some other groups might be interested.
Okay. Mayor.
Alderman Ross.
Okay, have we reconsidered, I know this is very early in the stage, shall we say, have we considered moving them out into a different building within the city of Freeport?
I think that's what they're looking for the council to tell them what to do or not to do, whether we're going to continue to let them to stay there, and if so, how long, because that's something that they're going to have to decide whether they want to stay there. And my recommendation to council right now is that I don't see us putting any money into it.
Yeah, I can't see, Mayor, follow up. No, I can't see putting no money into it. But to continue to have an art museum here within the city of Freeport, this is only an idea to maybe we can find another building for them to be in. But then again, what are we going to do with the empty building?
Alderman Ross, just to be clear, the art museum is its own private entity. It's not funded by tax dollars. They don't receive money from us. It's just the building that we have. We've allowed them for years to use the space.
Okay. Wow. Thank you.
Mayor,
Alderman Misick.
are we aware of any historic preservation funding that may be available for this?
I am currently not. I was talking with Jason whether the art district would have some opportunities for something like that. I don't believe this building is listed on any historical registry at this point.
We could do some research as to reaching out to a few organizations that see if they have an interest in locating a facility here, and try to get back to City Council at the next Committee of the Whole meeting in July. But I think that the Art Museum, which is a very, very, very valuable asset to the city, we're probably looking on what they need to do. Because if we're going to ask them to vacate, we should do that sooner rather than later, because there are some potential liabilities that have now been brought to our attention, and we're going to have to do something about that.
And their decisions are ultimately made by their board, correct?
As far as I'm concerned, yes, it is. I'm sorry, as far as I know, yes, it is.
Well, I've always believed they should be downtown just because it seems like a right thing for art museum. But as far as availability space, that's needs to be hashed out by their board, and I'm sure they've got that all in the works as well. So, any other questions concerning this study? Thank you, Darren.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda, Babette, I'm sorry, I hope that you're still there. It's 8:45, and we're anxious to hear the Freeport Housing Authority monthly report.
I would note it was submitted, at least in written form.
Yeah,
too.
Babette, are you available? Well, Council, there is a report that's been submitted, so make sure that you review that. If you have questions, you can reach out to Babette directly, or we can always put her on the next agenda as well to be able to speak, as long as that's acceptable. Any objections to that, Council?
None.
Okay, let's see what her availability is then. And so next is City Manager's report.
Thank you, Your Honor. Working with State Senator Brian Stewart, the city submitted 3 granting applications for funding in the new state fiscal year. And we were fortunate that 3 projects that we had submitted, we were getting some funds, not the entire amount that we were looking for. But the first grant that we're going to receive, if the governor, I think he signed the appropriations bill, is about $112,000 from the Build Illinois Bond Fund that we could use for general infrastructure improvements. The money is given to the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity, also known as DCO, to go towards the city of Freeport. The bigger one is for $1 million, and that $1 million is to be used for part of our Chicago Avenue Streetscape program, accessibility program that we're doing there. And that would be a big boost. That's about a $3.9 million project. We're also applying for separate Build Illinois funds as well to try to come up with the money to do that project. And then there's one I call as my contingency. Because reading the state budget, the way I interpreted it was that if there was money left over from this fiscal year, they would reappropriate it, and we could expect, depending on how much money is there, we could expect maybe $100,000 for more infrastructure improvements. So even though the state seems to be going broke, they're giving out money to different communities, and we're fortunate that we're one of them that could benefit from that. The other item I have, Your Honor, is that the governor did sign Senate Bill 685, which if the county board approves an ordinance, that they could waive the late fees for property taxes this year up to October 1st, or until the emergency declaration has been lifted. So right now we're looking at I think the county's looking at the end of July for first payment of property taxes, and then the beginning of October for second property taxes. So they're going to be paid really late this year. Normally by this time we'd be expecting to get our first payment around the 1st of July, between the first week of July. So that's going to hamper some of our cash flow. It will definitely hamper the library fund, because they rely almost exclusively on the property tax, and it's going to impact our two pension funds, actually all three of our pension funds, because that's where we pay a majority of the money from to go to the pensions. So, and that's all I have for tonight, Your Honor.
Thank you. I just want to talk about one thing this evening, and that is to say, draw attention to the peaceful march that happened on Saturday. I'd like to say thank you to Philanese Brooks and to Tamaya Burrows and Anthony King. They did an absolutely fabulous job accomplishing what they set out for, and we spoke to Philanese twice on the phone. I spoke to her multiple times on Saturday before the event started. But I just want to read to the council and to the public just 2 sentences that she had submitted, because she made every effort to do things in a proper manner. And I want to thank her for doing that. And these 2 sentences that stood out to me was her narrative. And in her narrative, she wrote, with the current events that took place on Sunday, May 31st, 2020, the community would like to demonstrate that peaceful protests can actually be executed. The main goal is to spark conversations and change in our small yet diverse town. So I just wanted to say again, thank you to her for all of that effort in starting these things. And just like the chief made a pledge, we pledge that we are here to listen, we are here to learn, and we are here to move in a direction of change that brings reformation and healing to our community. New business for council members? Alderman Berberay.
Nothing, Your Honor.
Alderman Bourne.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to say that I was also really inspired by what took place on Saturday. The march was a great success. And I think it's important to remember that just because we have titles behind our names or before our names, it doesn't necessarily make us leaders. It's about the acts that we do, and true leaders inspire people to act and inspire people to change. And I think that march was a true example of great leadership by those young people, Ms. Brooks, Burrow, and Mr. King. And I just want to thank them again for that. And I look forward to what the Social Justice Committee holds. It's certainly a step in the right direction. And as a council, we're here to listen, and we're hoping to move and continue to move in that right direction. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman McClenathan.
Thank you. I already said a fair amount when we were talking about the Social Justice Committee, so I'm not going to repeat a lot of that, but I am thankful as well. I'm also thankful for the comments from the chief tonight, and also his willingness to be present on Saturday. I am a firm believer in the phrase that I've seen multiple times. It says, "Before you lead, listen," and I look forward to working with the community as a whole as we all discuss what does a better Freeport look like.
Alderman Ross.
Yeah. Saturday was showed some great unity within the city of Freeport. Thanks to the help of the 3 young people that got out, did it, made it happen. 59 years old, be 60 in a couple months, and it's the first time I ever seen that. So it was very enlightening. I am glad to hear Chief Summers say, hey, he's going to get down to business and get the ball rolling. And that's very respectful. I mean, I can't say no more than that. I'll be honest with you, man. Like you said, though, if we got the ball rolling, let's keep it rolling and go from there. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Busker?
Yes, I'd like to kind of echo some of the same things that, Saturday was a great event. I apologize, I didn't make it to actually walk, but I did show up and listen to what was being said out here on the step, and I want to assure the community that I'm listening, as well as the chief made his comment that he's listening. So I think we all need to do a lot more of that. And I ran for this office to make this place a better, safer community for my children and all of our children. And, I think now we all need to step up and work on doing that for everybody. So, thank you.
Alderman Brashaw?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I believe in the positivity of the good things that have happened lately. I want my constituents to know, though, that my heart hurts for racial injustice. My heart hurts for our country. George Floyd died needlessly. So much hurt has happened. I want to thank those of you who took place in the peaceful protesting that has happened. I think it's wonderful. I also want to thank our good police officers. I do back those in blue. We have many good police officers, even in our community, who are hurting. Their families are afraid for them every day. And my heart goes out for those that are serving our community, that are protecting our community. And I want everyone to realize one bad act from a person who did something very, very wrong doesn't make all of our police officers bad. So thank you to our men in blue. That's it.
Thank you, Alderman Brashaw. Alderman Misick?
Thank you. I really want to echo a lot of the sentiments said here today. And really what is standing out is that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. To do more listening. And there are solutions that we can find to these very injustices. And my hearts go out to any victims in this. And really, as a community, this is our prime opportunity right now, is to step up and have those difficult conversations and to determine what truly can be actionable for us. So this is a time where leaders can step forward. I'm really excited for what the committee can do as getting us a step in the right direction. So I honor those who have been serving through all of this. I cannot imagine the stress that was felt by the police department the Sunday night. But I am very thankful that they showed restraint. I'm thankful for all of the other departments in the area that showed up and kept this city safe. So I'm thankful for those who have come forward to peacefully protest and to share their voice that they care about unity, they care about our city. So I have a lot of honor in seeing what truly is in the hearts of people to see injustices removed and choosing to take steps in the right direction. So thank you for that.
That concludes council new business. So we'll move on to public comments. Are there any public comments this evening? Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 19, which is executive session. Madam Clerk, could you please read that for the record?
We will not be using exemption 1 Pursuant to 5 ILCS 122C2, collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees. Also pursuant to 5 ILCS 122C11, litigation when an action against, affecting, or on behalf of the particular public body has been filed and is pending before a court or administrative tribunal, or when the public body finds that an action is probable or imminent, in which case the basis for the finding shall be recorded and entered into the minutes of the closed meeting.
Is there a motion to? I asked twice. Would you like to take 3 minutes?
Again, my name is Wendy Pearson, 1254 South Carroll, Freeport, Illinois. I'd like to address the City Council and the Mayor as well as the City Attorney in regards to the stuff that you guys were talking about social media. I want you to know that's going to be a problem. It's already a problem because we're looking at possible profiling. Our kids are already being watched. Our kids have been being watched from the high school, and they were being profiled in the high school, and our kids were being considered gang members, and they weren't because of some of their relatives who they hung out with and they're with every day and they grew up with and they were born around. So you're going to have a problem with that. We're not liking the way that sounds. The other thing I want you to understand is that you're talking about having a committee and you're putting something out on the table prior to having a committee to be able to speak on it. You're going to have a problem. You're talking about you're listening, but are you hearing? There's a difference between the two. There's a difference between listening and hearing. And when the words become too hard for your ears to listen, I'd like for you to allow your heart to hear. Don't allow your fear to capture the words and the meaning of the words. And that's what has occurred over and over and over again. It occurred with the young people. I know it for a fact because I've had to explain what they mean. You're setting up councils. You're setting up councils. I've never seen you a day in our life in our community. You're trying to do something with Facebook and social media, but you're not familiar with it. So how do you do that when you're not familiar with something that you're trying to change and monitor? I have a problem with that. I have a problem with faces that have never walked in the Third Ward, that has no idea what we live, how we live, or who we are. I have a problem with that. You're listening, or are you hearing? You need to understand that before you implement anything like that, Mr. New City Manager, you need to know what you're doing and what you're talking about. You need to know who you're dealing with. You need to come in our community and let us know who you are, because I didn't know who you were prior to today. I've never seen you before, and there aren't too many people in this city that I don't know. We have issues with that. We have issues with the mere fact that I've never seen him a day in our lives, in our communities, but he's the lawyer that represents the city and we pay his salary. You got to do more than listen. You've got to hear. And you've got to not be afraid when our words come out and there's too much for you to understand or it bends your heart because it's the truth and it hurts. And then you want to cut us off before we're finished speaking. And I should say to this before I leave, before you decide that you're going to put any of our young adults on a committee, you need to come to us because they're coming to us. They don't believe you and they don't trust you. Because when Philonise came to you, she came to me afterwards. Now, the young lady stood here and told you guys that Cindy told you that I was her daughter. Well, every last one of those kids, except for 1, 2, are related to me. So you know my fire and you know my passion. They have it as well. And I want to tell you one more thing. And I didn't tell them to do a thing. They did it on their own. Our kids are intelligent, they're smart, they're articulate, they know how to research, and they don't trust. And they're not going to trust you. So you're going to have to come through us to get to them. Have a good evening.
Stacy Whitfield. Just kind of piggyback off of her a little bit. You guys want to sit here and really allow nobody to be able to comment. It's almost like, let me say what I want and I ain't got to worry about hearing it back. That's not right. So you're seeing it happen. You started this conversation a couple months ago, but I looked at each and every one of you, and all of you looked surprised, and it's something new to all of you. And unfortunately, there was a post made last week with over 500 comments that somebody did not like back. So the truth is being told. So don't get on Facebook and expect a comment not to come back. You need to stand and address the Black community. If they're not coming to you, you go to them. Bottom line. So to pass that, even after I sat here and said that's oppression, you still did it. You still did it. And that is just not right. So if you really want to make this city better, if you're not, just don't have a Facebook page instead of just not allowing a comment. To disable the comment section, allowing you to say what you want, that is experiencing what my other generations before me experienced. And at some point, if you truly have God, Jesus in your heart, I have a doubt because I left the church when they want to stand for a flag over humans, over social justice. So as you see, when you did the flag, I stood with my hands in front, not saying a word. The national anthem song, it was made to demean the losers of the Civil War. And who was that? They took out, Congress made that the national anthem. They took out the most demeaning verses of that and said, oh, we're going to make this song for the country. It's not. It's not. So we're asking you, please do not move forward with that social media issue. It's just not the time. And it's going to be a lot worse if you decided to do that. And not on my end, because I handled things differently. But if you want a better result, you would do better.
Are there any other public comments? Seeing none, since the clerk already read into executive session, is there a motion to enter in?
So move.
Second.
We have a motion made by Alderman Ross, seconded by Alderman Misick. Madam Clerk, would you please take the roll on entering into executive session?
Brashma.
Aye.
Misick.
Aye.
Berberet.
Aye.
Borneman.
Aye.
McClanathan.
Aye.
Ross.
Aye.
And Busker.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.